The first time it happened, I barely noticed. I woke up to the blaring sound of my alarm, its shrill beeping slicing through my dreams. My hand fumbled for the snooze button as I groggily sat up, blinking against the pale morning light filtering through the blinds. My phone read 7:06 a.m. and a notification banner scrolled across the screen. Meeting with Mr. Halstead at 9:30 a.m. Right? Another tedious day at work. I forced myself out of bed, the cold floor sending a shiver up my spine. My small apartment was as lifeless as ever. The same unwashed coffee mug from last night sat on the counter, the same half-open book rested on the couch. Nothing unusual. The day unfolded as expected. I showered, dressed in my usual gray slacks and button-down, grabbed a stale bagel, and stepped out into the city's dull hum. The streets buzzed with the usual morning chaos, horns blaring, strangers murmuring into their phones, the scent of burnt coffee wafting from a street vendor's cart. I caught the 8:15 a.m. train, crammed between a woman tapping furiously on her tablet and a teenager lost in his headphones. The train doors slid open at my stop, and I made my way to Dawson and Company, the glass-fronted corporate tomb where I spent 8 hours of my life each day. At precisely 9:30 a.m., I sat across from Mr. Halstead, my boss, in his austere office. He droned on about quarterly reports while I nodded absent-mindedly, counting the minutes until lunch. By 6 p.m., I was home, drained. I threw my keys on the counter, reheated some leftovers, and flicked on the TV. Another meaningless day in a long string of meaningless days. Then I went to bed. And when I woke up, everything started again. The second time, I noticed something was wrong. My alarm blared and I groggily turned it off. My phone read 7:06 a.m. A creeping unease settled over me as I sat up. Deja vu? No, this was stronger. This was wrong. My eyes flickered to the unread notification. Meeting with Mr. Halstead at 9:30 a.m. I frowned. Didn't I already have that meeting? I shook my head, dismissing the thought as early morning brain fog. I went through my morning routine, but a strange feeling of repetition lingered. The same coffee mug sat in the same spot. The book hadn't moved. The bagel was still stale. The unease built as I walked to the train station. The same street vendor handed the same customer the same cup of burnt coffee, his fingers brushing hers at the exact same moment. The same woman in a red coat crossed the street, her phone slipping from her hand just before she caught it. Something was off. By the time I arrived at work, my palms were clammy. I made my way to Mr. Halstead's office, and the moment he opened his mouth, my stomach twisted. He was saying the exact same words as yesterday. The numbers from last quarter indicate a slow but steady decline. Stop. The word left my lips before I could think. Halstead blinked, caught off guard. Excuse me. I mean, haven't we had this conversation already? I forced a laugh, but it came out thin. It's just... I feel like I've heard this before. He narrowed his eyes. It's called deja vu. Maybe get some rest. I nodded stiffly, trying to shake the growing dread. The rest of the day unfolded like a script I had already memorized. By the time I was back in my apartment, I was certain something was wrong. I grabbed my phone. The date read March 15th. I swore under my breath. I checked my calendar, same meetings, same reminders. My mind raced. I considered calling a friend, but what would I even say? Instead, I opened my fridge and grabbed a bottle of water. My hands were shaking. I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the TV. The same program was playing. A freak electrical storm is expected to roll through the city later this week, bringing with it the coldest temperatures this season. The anchor's voice was identical. Word for word. Panic crept into my chest. I tried to stay up. I forced myself to keep my eyes open, guzzling coffee, pacing the apartment. But exhaustion won. Eventually, I slept. And when I woke up, my alarm blared. My phone read 7:06 a.m. And I knew. I was trapped. The third time, I couldn't deny it anymore. I woke up to the same blaring alarm. The same timestamp on my phone, 7:06 a.m. The same notification about my meeting with Mr. Halstead. I sat up so fast my head spun. My pulse hammered in my ears. This wasn't a dream. I threw off the covers and rushed to my window, half expecting to see something different, something that would prove I wasn't losing my mind. But outside, the world was exactly as it had been yesterday. The same people walked the same routes. The woman in the red coat dropped her phone again, catching it with the same startled expression. The street vendor handed over the same burnt coffee to the same customer, their fingers brushing at the exact same moment. The world was stuck. A cold sweat slicked my skin as I backed away from the window. Okay, think. If today is repeating, I need to do something different. I grabbed my phone and dialed my best friend, Mark. Hey, man, he answered after 2 rings, his voice groggy. Why are you calling so early? I hesitated. What's today's date? March 15th. He yawned. Dude, you good? I swallowed hard. What did we talk about last night? Mark chuckled. We didn't talk last night. My stomach dropped. We had talked. I had called him after work to vent about Mr. Halstead's endless meetings. But in this loop, it had never happened. I exhaled shakily. Never mind. Sorry for waking you. Mark grumbled something and hung up. I needed proof. I snatched a notebook from my desk and scribbled. March 15th. The loop is real. Then, beneath it, I wrote. Try to change something. Anything. Instead of taking my usual shower, I went straight for coffee. Instead of my usual gray slacks, I threw on jeans and a hoodie. When I left my apartment, I took a different route to the train station, cutting through alleys I had never used before. But the world didn't care. The same woman in the red coat appeared, walking the same route, dropping her same phone at the same moment. The street vendor still handed off the burnt coffee. My stomach clenched as I stepped onto the train. The same people occupied the same seats, the same teenager bobbing his head to the same music. I forced myself to remain calm as I reached work. I wasn't going to that meeting. At 9:15 a.m., I walked straight out of the building and into the city. I had no destination, just an overwhelming need to disrupt whatever this was. I wandered through streets I had never seen before, passing unfamiliar shops and buildings. For a moment, I thought I had broken free. But then I blinked. And I was back, standing in front of Dawson and Company. At 9:29 a.m., like I had never left. I felt my stomach twist violently. I had just walked away. I had chosen not to be here. But it didn't matter. Time had dragged me back. I was trapped in its grip, forced to walk the path it had written for me. I stumbled into the building, my breath coming in shallow gasps. Mr. Halstead looked up as I entered his office, frowning slightly. The numbers from last quarter indicate a slow but steady decline. I slammed my hands on his desk. Shut up, I shouted, chest heaving. Halstead blinked in shock. Excuse me. You've already said that. Every word. I've been stuck in this day, and I trailed off as something changed. For the first time in 3 loops, Halstead's expression shifted. His features darkened, his eyes narrowing. I took a step back. What? For a moment, he just stared at me. Then he smiled. A slow, creeping smile. The office around me shuddered, the walls seeming to pulse as if they were breathing. Ah, Halstead said, his voice lower than before. You're finally starting to notice. The air in the room grew thick, suffocating. The office lights flickered. The view outside the window warped, buildings bending at unnatural angles, the sky darkening into an inky void. I stumbled back, knocking over a chair. What the hell is happening? I gasped. Halstead tilted his head, his smile too wide now, stretching too far. His skin rippled as if something beneath it was shifting. You wanted to break the loop, he said, voice distorting. But you should have asked who created it? The room lurched. I fell backward. And then, I woke up. 7:06 a.m. March 15th. My alarm blared. I sat up, gasping, drenched in sweat. I turned to my notebook with shaking hands. The words were gone. The page was blank. And then, my phone screen flickered. A new notification appeared. It wasn't from my calendar. It was a text message. From an unknown number. You can't escape. My breath hitched. The text on my screen blurred as my hands trembled. You can't escape. I stared at it, pulse thudding in my ears. I pressed my fingers to my temples, forcing myself to think. Who sent this? How did they know? Was this part of the loop, or had I finally done something to break it? I tapped the message, trying to reply. Error. Message failed to send. I tried calling the number. Disconnected. A chill crawled up my spine. I needed proof that I wasn't imagining things. I grabbed my notebook and flipped to the page where I had written my notes yesterday, or at least the last version of yesterday. It was still blank. No scribbles. No signs of my desperate attempts to document my entrapment. I gritted my teeth and picked up my pen, writing. March 15th. The loop is real. Someone knows. I tore the page from the notebook and stuffed it into my pocket. If the loop erased my writing again, at least I'd have physical proof. A thought struck me. I grabbed my phone and opened the camera. If writing disappeared, maybe a photo would stick. I snapped a picture of the torn page. I checked my gallery. The image was there, as clear as day. I exhaled in relief. Maybe I could fight this. Maybe I could prove this was real. But then, the screen flickered. The image corrupted before my eyes, the text warping into black static. A new image replaced it. A photo of me. Not one I had taken. I was sitting in my bed, staring at my phone. Just like I was right now. A picture of this exact moment. A cold, sharp fear coiled in my gut. My hands trembled as I turned the phone over as if that would stop whatever force was watching me. I wasn't alone in this loop. I tore out of bed, adrenaline pushing me forward. I couldn't sit still. I had to do something, anything, before I lost my mind. Skipping the shower. Ignoring breakfast. Throwing on a random set of clothes. I yanked open my front door. And stopped. The hallway wasn't right. The carpet, usually a dull shade of gray, was now deep red. The doors lining the hall seemed off. Twisted, like they had been stretched just a little too tall, a little too narrow. And the worst part, there was someone standing at the end of the hallway. Not moving. Not blinking. Just watching me. I couldn't see their face. The dim lighting cast them in shadow, their figure unnervingly still. My breath caught. "Who are you?" No response. I took a hesitant step forward. The figure tilted its head. And then, it moved. Not walking. Not stepping. It glided forward, too fast, too smooth. I slammed the door shut. My heart pounded against my ribs as I stumbled backward, gasping for air. What was that? Was it part of the loop? Or had I done something to change the rules? I turned toward my window, thinking of escape. And then, knock, knock, knock. The sound came from my door. I froze. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I held my breath. Then, a voice. Let me in. Not possible. Not real. I clutched my phone, fingers trembling, and opened the camera again. I turned it toward the door. The screen showed nothing. No one was there. But the knocking continued. Louder. Bang, bang, bang. I squeezed my eyes shut. This isn't real. This isn't real. Then, silence. I opened my eyes. The door was open, and the hallway was normal again. Carpet gray. Doors correct. No figure in sight. But I knew better now. This loop wasn't just repeating. It was changing. And something inside it was watching me. Waiting. I didn't go to work. I didn't follow my routine. Instead, I walked aimlessly through the city, watching, listening, trying to spot any new cracks in reality. And I found them. A streetlight flickering in a pattern Morse code. A man on the train repeating the same words under his breath. Over and over, like a broken record. A child staring at me from across the street, their lips moving as if whispering my name, but no sound came out. The world wasn't just resetting. It was breaking. At exactly 9:29 a.m., no matter where I went, I found myself in front of Dawson and Company. No matter how I tried to resist, the loop forced me back. But today, I didn't go inside. Instead, I turned around and saw him. A man stood across the street, dressed in a black suit, watching me. He wasn't just watching. He was smiling. The same too-wide smile Halstead had given me in the office. Something inside me screamed run, but I couldn't. I could only stand there as he raised his hand and pointed directly at me. My vision blurred. The world fractured. And then, I woke up. 7:06 a.m., March 15th. My phone buzzed. Another text. You're running out of time. I stared at my phone screen, my chest tightening. You're running out of time. I didn't respond. I didn't even try. There was no point. Whatever was watching me, whoever was toying with me, was beyond the rules of this reality. I clenched my fists. I had 2 choices. First, keep running in circles, losing my mind as the loop twisted into something worse. Second, take control. I had to find a way out. The first thing I did was destroy my routine. I didn't shower. I didn't make coffee. I didn't check the news. Instead, I grabbed my jacket, shoved my phone into my pocket, and left the apartment before 7:10 a.m. The hallway looked normal this time. No blood-red carpet. No shadowy figures lurking at the end. But I didn't trust it. I took the stairs instead of the elevator. I stepped out into the morning air, my breath fogging in the cold. The city buzzed with life, the same as always, but I knew better now. This wasn't real. It was a stage. A set. And I was the actor being forced to repeat the same script over and over. I checked my watch. 7:15 a.m. I had never been outside at this time before. Maybe this was progress. Maybe I had just bought myself some time. Or maybe I had just made a terrible mistake. At first, everything seemed normal. But then, the cracks began to show. A man at the coffee stand was pouring an empty cup. No liquid. No steam. Just an endless loop of tipping the pot over and over, his face blank. A woman's laughter echoed, too loud, too distorted, repeating the same note like a broken record. A group of pigeons stood frozen in place, not moving, not blinking. I took a shaky breath. I was outside the script now. I had left the pre-programmed sequence of events. And the world didn't know how to handle it. Then, a voice behind me. "You're not supposed to be here." I spun around. A man in a black suit. The same smiling man from yesterday. He stood across the street, head tilted, watching me. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't wait. I just ran. I darted through traffic, horns blaring. I pushed past pedestrians, my heartbeat a war drum in my ears. I could feel him behind me. Not chasing. Just watching. And then, I turned a corner and slammed into someone. I hit the ground hard, my hands scraping against the pavement. "Whoa, easy there," a voice said. I looked up. A woman, mid-30s, sharp green eyes, a leather jacket. Anu. A notebook in her hands. My breath caught, because I could see the words written on the open page. March 15th. The loop is real. My exact words. She saw me reading and snapped the notebook shut. "You see it too, don't you?" she asked. I swallowed hard. The loop. Her expression darkened. Yeah. Her name was Lena Carter. And she had been stuck in this loop for weeks. "I don't know how it started," she admitted, leading me into a diner, one of the few places that seemed stable. "But I do know this, it's getting worse." I sat across from her, my hands still shaking. "How do you remember?" She tapped her notebook. "Writing. But only in certain places. Words disappear when the loop resets, but if I write them here, in this book, they stick." I glanced down at my own pocket where my own vanishing notes had failed. "So there's a way to fight back." Lena's lips pressed into a thin line. "There's a way to break it," she said. "But it's dangerous." I leaned forward. "Tell me." She hesitated. Then, in a hushed voice, she said, "You have to find the anchor." My stomach twisted. "The what?" "The thing keeping the loop in place." She flipped through her notebook, revealing frantic sketches, symbols, locations, faces. One page stood out, a crude drawing of a door. "I think this is it," Lena said. "A door that shouldn't exist. A door that only appears when you push the loop hard enough." I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. Because I had seen that door before. The night my hallway changed. The door that had been left open. The one I had been too afraid to enter. Lena's voice was firm. "If we want to escape, we have to go through it." I exhaled slowly. The loop was changing. And now I had a choice. To keep running. Or to face the horror that waited on the other side of that door. And finally break free. Lena's words echoed in my head as I followed her through the city's distorted streets. If we want to escape, we have to go through it. The door. The one I had seen in my hallway just once. Before fear stopped me from stepping through. I didn't want to go back. Every instinct screamed against it. But what choice did I have? The loop was unraveling. The world around me. Glitches in conversations, the frozen pigeons, the smiling man watching me from the edge of my vision, was proof that I had pushed too far. I could feel it. The loop was aware of me now, and it did not want me to leave. By the time we reached my apartment building, the air felt thick, charged with something unseen. Lena hesitated at the entrance. "You sure it's here?" she asked. I swallowed and nodded. Yeah, it was at the end of my hallway. We stepped inside. The lobby was wrong. The lights flickered in unnatural patterns. The front desk was empty, no receptionist, no noise. The elevator doors were open, yet the inside was just dark, a void. Lena grabbed my arm. "No elevators," she whispered. We took the stairs. With each step, I felt watched. When we reached my floor, I nearly turned back. The hallway was not mine. The walls were taller than before, stretching up into an impossible ceiling. The carpet had shifted from its usual dull gray to something richer, darker, red. And at the far end, the door. A black wooden door. No apartment number. No handle. Just waiting. I felt a sharp pain in my skull. A pulse of static rang in my ears. Lena clutched her notebook. That's it. I took a deep breath. Then, together, we walked toward it. As we reached the door, the air turned icy. Lena placed her hand against the wood. It's cold. I hesitated, then did the same. The moment my palm touched it, something shifted. The hallway behind us vanished. The world around us folded inward. And then, the door swung open on its own. A black void waited on the other side. Lena exhaled sharply. No turning back now. We stepped through. I expected darkness, silence, maybe even oblivion. But instead, we stepped into a mirror of my apartment. Except, it wasn't. The walls were slightly off, like a copy of a copy. The furniture was there, but decayed. My couch had rotted fabric. My kitchen appliances were rusted. And a foul smell hung in the air. And on the walls, pictures of me. Not just normal pictures. I walked closer, my stomach twisting. Each photo showed me in different iterations of the loop. Me waking up. Me drinking coffee. Me looking in the bathroom mirror. And me dying. One photo showed my body sprawled across my living room floor, my throat slashed. Another showed me mid-fall from my apartment balcony. A third, I turned away, bile rising in my throat. What the hell is this? I whispered. Lena's voice was tight. This isn't just a loop. She looked at me, her green eyes filled with realization. This is a feeding ground. Lena's words echoed in my head as I followed her through the city's distorted streets. If we want to escape, we have to go through it. The door. The one I had seen in my hallway just once before fear stopped me from stepping through. I didn't want to go back. Every instinct screamed against it. But what choice did I have? The loop was unraveling. The world around me glitches in conversations, the frozen pigeons, the smiling man watching me from the edge of my vision was proof that I had pushed too far. I could feel it. The loop was aware of me now, and it did not want me to leave. By the time we reached my apartment building, the air felt thick, charged with something unseen. Lena hesitated at the entrance. You sure it's here? She asked. I swallowed and nodded. Yeah, it was at the end of my hallway. We stepped inside. The lobby was wrong. The lights flickered in unnatural patterns. The front desk was empty, no receptionist, no noise. The elevator doors were open, yet the inside was just dark. A void. Lena grabbed my arm. No elevators, she whispered. We took the stairs. With each step, I felt watched. When we reached my floor, I nearly turned back. The hallway was not mine. The walls were taller than before, stretching up into an impossible ceiling. The carpet had shifted from its usual dull gray to something richer, darker, red. And at the far end, the door. A black, wooden door. No apartment number. No handle. Just waiting. I felt a sharp pain in my skull. A pulse of static rang in my ears. Lena clutched her notebook. That's it. I took a deep breath. Then, together, we walked toward it. As we reached the door, the air turned icy. Lena placed her hand against the wood. It's cold. I hesitated, then did the same. The moment my palm touched it, something shifted. The hallway behind us vanished. The world around us folded inward. And then, the door swung open on its own. A black void waited on the other side. Lena exhaled sharply. No turning back now. We stepped through. I expected darkness, silence, maybe even oblivion. But instead, we stepped into a mirror of my apartment. Except it wasn't. The walls were slightly off, like a copy of a copy. The furniture was there, but decayed. My couch had rotted fabric, my kitchen appliances were rusted, and a foul smell hung in the air. And on the walls, pictures of me. Not just normal pictures. I walked closer, my stomach twisting. Each photo showed me in different iterations of the loop. Me waking up. Me drinking coffee. Me looking in the bathroom mirror. And me dying. One photo showed my body sprawled across my living room floor, my throat slashed. Another showed me mid-fall from my apartment balcony. A third, I turned away, bile rising in my throat. What the hell is this? I whispered. Lena's voice was tight. This isn't just a loop. She looked at me, her green eyes filled with realization. This is a feeding ground. The pieces clicked together. The loop wasn't just some bizarre time anomaly. It was a trap. And someone was feeding off of it. Lena pointed to a symbol carved into the wooden floor. a twisting, unnatural spiral. "I've seen this before," she said. "In other loops, other people." I stiffened. "There are more." Her jaw clenched. "Yes, but most don't last this long." The smiling man, the messages, the changes in reality every time I deviated. It wasn't trying to keep me here. It was breaking me down, testing how far I would go before I lost myself. And the more I fought, the more desperate it became to consume me. I shook my head. "So how do we stop it?" Lena exhaled. "We break the anchor." The anchor, whatever was keeping the loop in place. I scanned the room, my pulse racing. Then, a single door stood at the end of the hall. It hadn't been there before. Lena and I exchanged a look. "This is it," she said. I stepped forward. Then, a sharp, inhuman whisper echoed through the room. "You shouldn't be here." The air grew thick. A shadow peeled itself from the wall, and the smiling man stepped forward. But this time he wasn't just watching. He was hunting. His face was stretched, his grin too wide, too unnatural. His eyes were hollow voids, dripping with something black and unnatural. His fingers elongated, curling like talons. Lena grabbed my arm. "No time, run." We sprinted toward the final door. The smiling man lurched forward, faster than anything human. The walls distorted. The room collapsed inward. Reality itself fractured. I grabbed the doorknob, twisted, and everything exploded into white. When I opened my eyes, I was in my apartment. Normal. Sunlight streamed through the window. The air smelled fresh. No distorted walls. No grinning shadows. No loop. Lena stood beside me, breathless. We looked at each other. And then, the clock on my wall clicked to March 16th. We had done it. We were free. But as I turned away, I caught something in the corner of my vision. A single black and white photograph sitting on my coffee table. Picture of my apartment, with a shadow standing in the doorway, still smiling. The loop was broken, but something had followed us out, and it wasn't done playing.